Hello and welcome to Raising Those Spirits. I'm Steve.
And I'm Sam, as it turns out.
It does turn out confirmed. Not confirmed, actually. There's no camera involved here. We do this remotely, microphones only.
That's true. There's always a possibility that I'm not really me, and this is just someone who's really good at impersonating me,
I mean,
who should think of other things to do with their time.
after reading Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark 2 and 3, this is
Mhm.
basically just a modern Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. A lot of the ones in part 3, getting a little ahead of ourselves, were very, like, cautionary tale-esque type of things where your podcast host was someone else the whole time.
Yeah. And then it turned out it wasn't really Sam, it was the ghost. Turn
Sam
to your
sent
turn to
Sam
your
sent
friends
a
and
text that said he wasn't going to make it that night.
scream. There is an awful lot of that in these books.
There is
Yes.
a lot of that in these books.
Which is great. Which is why we're talking about them because we love these scary stories books, and I'm glad that we're diving into them again this week.
I had a lot of fun reading 2 and 3. I
Mhm.
I remembered 2 and 3 specifically less and yet they seemed more familiar. Does that track?
Yeah, I think I know what you mean. I think after reading Scary Stories 1, I realized there were less stories in that one that I remembered, and there are some stories in 2 and 3 that have lived rent free in my head for decades.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a
Like
lot
they're
of like foundations of horror from 2 and 3 for me.
yeah, they definitely have held on to my soul. And I'm so happy to be talking to you about them, my fellow spooky dad.
I
Ooh.
love that I get to talk to you about them because talking to dead bodies about what's going on is not good conversation. And
Of a weird profession. It's very
I read
strange.
these books again while hanging out with dead bodies. It's so much ambiance. It's too much ambiance. I would prefer like sitting in a sunny patch in a graveyard ambiance. But, it is what it
Uh,
is.
guess for any of our new listeners, normally we talk about all the spooky fun things you can do with your family. And now we're actually talking about how Steve is living in a horror movie.
I live
Just live a
in
horror movie life
a
now.
horror movie or a horror comedy.
Oh, that's good.
Maybe
It's one of the good ones.
I like to think I'm just a zany NPC and I'm just getting geared up for the main character to show up.
They better show up so you can stop working with those corpses.
Ideally, yes. It's the only explanation. I was supposed to be in 3 days a month, home the rest of the time. It has been reversed, and I'm like, what are they waiting for? I would
You're
like to
living a
go
scary
home.
story.
So, we did used to talk about fun, cool stuff you could do spooky, but we replaced that segment, and now we talk about cool, spooky holidays happening around that time.
Oh, I'm excited to hear about today's.
All right, so it's my turn to tell a spooky holiday, and you assigned me the Day of Dracula from Romania,
Hmm.
and I could find nothing about that. But on the same date, so I assume it's the same thing, is the day of a World Dracula Day.
Okay, that's probably where it came from.
Yes. So, first of all, and I want to get this out ahead of time before I say anything about Day of Dracula, World Dracula Day. One of the pages that I used to research this went all in, and the text was white. So if you were in daytime mode, there was nothing to read. But if you swapped to nighttime mode, you could read the webbed page.
Oh my goodness, it's like the web page itself is a vampire.
Yes, I was like, that's really cool. That's that little extra mile. So, just wanted to shout them out. The page isn't really worth going to, but that was that A plus for effort. That's some S rank web design right there. Okay, so I mean, I appreciated it. So, May 26th is World Dracula Day, also known as the Day of Dracula.
Hmm.
It commemorates the publication date of Bram Stoker's Dracula on May 26th, 1897. Fun fact: Bram Stoker, while despite having many extremely accurate references and depictions of locations in Transylvania and Romania, never ever in his life actually made it there.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, vampires, at least in concept and legends, have existed for centuries. But one of the things that made Dracula stand out and really like rock the horror world is that Dracula, of course, was based on a real life famous figure, Vlad the Impaler, and that's what really drew everyone's attention to it. Like that fantastical story built around a, fantastical real life man.
Hmm.
I imagine in like 200 years there will be horror stories about Pete Davidson in a similar way.
Take that, Pete
Take
Davidson.
that, Pete Davidson. By all accounts, you're a great guy.
I mean, celebrities love him.
So while I didn't find any actual fun celebrations in Romania, Whitby in northern England, where Dracula famously relocated to in the book,
Hmm.
hosts multiple events to celebrate Dracula on this day, including the famous castle in ruins that is still there to this day that it was set at. They light up for the event.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so Whitby specifically does a lot of cool Day of Dracula stuff, but globally, people tend to visit local vampire historic sites. You and me could go and finally visit that grave that I spoke of a few episodes ago in Rhode
Oh,
Island.
yeah, yeah.
Um, Watch vampire movies, reread your favorite vampire novel, read Bram Stoker's Dracula if you've never done it. So these are the type of things that you do on the day of Dracula.
Oh, that's a lot of fun. I'll plug, I listened to the audio book of Dracula as read by Christopher Lee.
That
It
sounds
was
pretty good.
great. It was really good.
If you are
Really good. I found it on Spotify, I think. You can find it on the internet.
if you're a fan of the metal, um, there is an edit of Nosferatu, the film,
Hmm.
because the soundtrack for that was lost. So back, in like the old black and white piano stuff. But Typo Negative actually did a soundtrack for it.
Oh,
Um,
that sounds awesome.
yeah, I own that. I can make you a copy if you'd like. But yeah, there's just a version of it using Typo Negative music, and it is pretty cool. So if that's your thing, maybe check that out.
That's good. I would definitely say if you're gonna watch Nosferatu, find a good copy of it because the free copies that you can find online, a lot of the music is pretty bad. Just like whatever was free and available to whoever was editing it. So definitely I would say seek out something with a good soundtrack. So that Typo Negative one sounds really good.
Yeah, I recommend it. It's my favorite so far. I've heard some cool like orchestral ones that they actually put effort into, but it's just a cool vibe with the Typo Negative. It works. They time it really well. It's in a weird way almost like watching like 2001: A Space Odyssey with Dark Side of the Moon, but it's supposed to be there.
Right. Think for Dracula Day, I'm gonna watch some Vampirina. Does that sound?
Oh dear God.
I know you hate it. You know what we watched this morning? We watched Disney Channel Zombies about zombies in high school.
Okay.
I woke up and my daughter had already gotten up and gotten to the TV and put this movie on by herself. No vampires in it though.
My
It
son.
has no edge, I will tell you. It is amazing how Disney can make a zombie movie that has absolutely zero edge to it. I was astonished.
So what are you
Sorry, go
drinking?
ahead.
No, no, no.
What
Go
am I
ahead.
drinking?
What are you drinking?
Clearly I've been drinking it already. I am drinking a Black Widow cocktail that I
Ooh,
found on keepingthepeas.com. So Peas, keepingthepeas.com. Black Widow cocktail. It's a simple cocktail. It has three ingredients: vodka, lemonade, and club soda. They recommend using a black vodka, which I didn't know was a thing. It's called Alvod Black Vodka, Balvod, which has a dark hue. But you could also use black food coloring, which I did because I didn't have this fancy dark vodka. It is, he says, stalled for time as he scrolled back down to the recipe. 2 ounces of black vodka, 3 ounces of lemonade, and 1 ounce of club soda. Again, a little bit of black food coloring to make it black. A little heavy on the vodka for me. I added more club soda kind of to even it out. A nice spooky drink that I picked because it had a spider name in the title, and we're going to talk about a spider story soon. That's what I'm
n-
drinking.
nice. Tonight's episode is brought to you from me by Robitussin. That's what I'm drinking. Because I have the flu and I couldn't stop coughing long enough to record. So, some people do drink Robitussin. Here's what you want to do to properly drink Robitussin. It comes with a little cup on top of it. So, you flip that cup over, and there's a line, and it's the adult dose. It's 2 milligrams. You fill it up to that line, you throw it back, you rinse out the cup for what feels like 5 minutes, and then you put it away.
Oh my goodness. Robitussin, it is life.
Yeah,
It's very good that, oh my goodness. Good luck being alive tomorrow.
I'm running on Robitussin and 2 hours of sleep. So, actually, my sister in law bought me the world's strongest coffee for Christmas.
Ooh,
Yeah, a lot of
the
people.
Death Wish brand?
Yes! And I cracked it open for this morning's coffee because I only got 2 hours of sleep last night. And let me tell you, it works. I can't tell you what it tasted like. I was too tired to remember that, but I functioned fine. I have a 90-minute commute. It was fine.
One of my colleagues is telling me that she was drinking she had gotten the Death Wish coffee and she was drinking it that day. And I was like, you know that nobody expects you to like be that awake and doing that much work. Like, don't feel the need that you have to like drink super caffeinated coffee to be productive. If you're tired, just slow down. That's my recommendation.
Mine was actually Kismet. So I had to get up for work at 5 a.m. this morning. So I always prep
Mm.
my machine the night before. And last night I just was like, you know what? Or my wife was. She was like, use the crazy coffee. And I was like, that's a good idea. I'm gonna be up like super early. I'll get a little bit of oomph. And then I just didn't sleep. So it ended up being really welcome to have that.
Good. I've cut back on my coffee. Well, I drink the same amount of coffee, but I usually cut it with some decaf so that I don't explode.
I had cut most of my coffee out, but the Cadaver Lab is actually quite cold, so I drink coffee for warmth throughout the day a lot.
Oh, sure. Keep your pulse going.
Yeah,
What a
I've
life you live. You're
I'm
not a
s-
real person.
I'm s-
You
I'm
said you're
trying
an
to
NPC.
slowly go over to herbal tea, so I still have a warm beverage, but I'm not like just chugging 4 cups of coffee a day.
All right, let's talk
Okay,
about
scary stories
scary
too,
stories too. Yeah, let's talk about scary
aka
stories
more
too.
scary stories to tell in the dark.
Hmm.
Okay,
Sit here,
so
sit here with it in my hands. I love these books so much. I'm so glad that I finally own copies of them.
yeah, I don't own two. I own a PDF of two, but I own the physical copies of one and three. And yeah, I really enjoyed two and three. I was thinking they might get a little stale,
Hmm.
but they didn't. He keeps it going really well. These are
Absolutely.
They're done in the same exact way. They've got the awesome bibliography at the back. Um, One of the stories in part three, actually, to like peek ahead, it ends, and then he was like, "If you want to finish the story, go to the bibliography."
Yeah.
That was like a little jarring, but a little cool.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I was like, this is where the story ends, but like,
But you
flip
want
to
to
the
know
bibliography.
what's going on, so
I thought that was such a great way to engage readers to
check it out.
go to the notes like that, like because that I might not have like gone and read all of the notes if not for like, oh, I'm already back here reading this, and now I can see just how much more the story I can get out of it if I go to read what he's saying.
Yeah, I
I thought it was very clever.
once I was in the notes, I ended up reading a lot more notes.
Yes. 'Cause it was his way of going like, oh, I didn't just like make you this collection of scary stories. I researched the history of these scary stories to bring you the best version of them. I want you to understand the level of work that went into this, and that's how he got us. It worked.
And
Elliot, Alvin Schwartz, you will be missed. You are a smart man.
and like for that one especially, it was like, oh, you think that story was scary? Wait till you hear what actually happened. It's freaky.
Yeah, that was upsetting. But that's part three. We're talking about part two
We're
first. Let's
part
talk about
two.
part two.
So
More scary stories to tell in the dark.
these books are broken down like the previous books, where there's collections of stories. And book two, much like book one, ends in a chapter that's the last laugh, and it's just spooky and funny. So the first collection is called When She Saw Him, She Screamed and Ran, and it's a collection of ghost stories. And I enjoyed these ones better than the first book's ghost stories.
But yeah.
I think it's because they were a little more modern,
Hmm.
but I was really into. I thought this book started off strong. Like it didn't start off on a 10, like eating a toe, like in the first one. But like I thought it was like a really strong showing for the first collection of stories.
Sure. This is definitely so. The second story in this, or maybe it's the third. One of the early stories in this book from this chapter. One Sunday morning. It's the third story in the book, and it's a woman who gets up early and tries to get to church, and she ends up at church for a ceremony for the dead, so she's surrounded by ghosts. That story, One Sunday Morning, has stuck with me through my whole life. I remember every detail of this story from the first time I read it, from when I must have been like 7 years old. One of the first things that I was actually able to read. I love this. I love this collection.
That was such like a quick Twilight Zone type of an episode.
Right. I don't know. I don't know what it is about this one in particular that imprinted on me the way that it did, but I would say that probably the most out of any story in all three books, One Sunday Morning has stuck with me in a profound way. I couldn't tell you why exactly.
Oh, I mean, that's cool. That's what these are about.
Right.
So the next collection of stories, we have two books to go on, so we're going to kind of trudge us along a little quicker this one.
A smart idea. Smart idea.
She was spitting and yowling just like a cat. I liked this collection a lot because a lot of these have cool historical context. Not like they're not just that they're like period pieces, but they have like you can tell they're old cautionary tales. Like there's one about a woman who they thought she died and they buried her, but it turned out she was alive. There's another one about a woman who gets trapped in an old steamer trunk. Just like actual dangers of just living in this time period.
The one about the woman getting stuck in the trunk, the bride on page 27. I feel like I've heard that same story told so many
Oh
times.
yeah, that is like
It's
classic.
definitely, yeah.
And again, I think that's why it's like a cautionary tale for like children. Like don't crawl into old trunks in secret rooms or the attic or places people don't go because no one will hear you.
Absolutely.
It's like
Oh,
kids'
that's why they make trunks like
fridges.
that. They make them so that they don't lock if you're inside now,
Yeah,
because things like that have happened so many times.
same thing with refrigerators. You can open them from the inside now because kids kept getting stuck in them.
Oh yeah, and trunks, like
Yeah.
actual like car trunks.
Oh yeah, same thing. Unless it's Asian,
So
then there's no release valve.
is that true?
Yep.
Oh, I had no idea.
Asian cars do not have a safety release in the trunk.
Interesting.
I know that because real life horror story. There was this guy who got like blackout drunk and passed out
Oh,
in this
no.
woman's car. And like she could tell someone had passed out in her car, but she thought they must have just like left. But he ended up like crawling into her trunk and he was trapped in there for like 3 days. And then finally she was like driving to work and he got like you know how like the middle seat will have like a little thing that comes down so you can see into the trunk sometimes.
Yes.
He got that down. And so she just saw like an arm come out of it in the rearview mirror, and then like an eye appear, and he was like, "Could you let me out?" And she abruptly freaked out, as you should when that happens. But the
Where
cop,
did you hear this?
this was like a big news story a few months ago.
Oh my God, I completely missed this completely.
I'm sure you could easily Google like "man in trunk 3 days."
I believe you.
But yeah, they were like, yeah, because it was like a Japanese car or something, they don't have that standard, and they don't have release valves.
Weird.
So
So don't go in trunks. This
of
is what
any
Alvin
type.
Schwartz is trying to tell you. Don't hide in a trunk. Do it.
So
It's
followed.
good. That's good dad advice.
It
That's
is
good dad advice.
very good dad advice. Oh, I had a good dad joke queued up, and I was just like, I should write it down. And I was like, no, I will clearly remember this, and I clearly do not remember it.
Oh my God. My daughter the 2 days ago, she goes, "I'm hungry." I looked at her and I went, "Oh, what do you want to eat?" She goes, "No, you say hi, hungry. I'm dad." I was like, "Oh, of course." I was like, she called me out for not making a dad joke.
Oh my
It
god.
was very cute.
It was a vampire one and everything. It was like so on theme. But
You can't remember it.
let me see if it's in my notes for scary stories. Nope. Nope. You have all been spared a really bad Dracula joke.
Text me when you think of it at 3 a.m.
Absolutely. I'll apparently be up. So then the next section is called When I Wake Up, Everything Will Be All Right. Now, the thing I liked about this collection is they're all stories that end abruptly. There's just like no explanation, just horror.
Hmm.
Like, there's the woman who like comes home after her roommate is already asleep and she wakes up and finds she's been decapitated and it just like ends there.
Yeah. Oh,
Like,
which they used in Urban Legends. I feel
well,
like we talk about that movie.
yeah, the aren't you glad you didn't turn on the light one?
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That movie's terrible.
So, um, I the other thing I like about this chapter is a lot of them are just about how you shouldn't be a dick. Like that's just like the moral of this chapter. It's like just don't be a jerk to people, like, and bad things won't happen to you. Like
Like in the cat in the shopping bag.
the cat in the shopping bag, the
That was the one
fraternity
where,
hazing.
yeah, oh yeah, that one.
There was a whole bunch of ones that were just, if you hadn't stolen that thing, this bad thing wouldn't have happened to you.
On page 56, the dead man's hand, which was about medical students who pranked one of the other medical students by hiding a hand in her closet, made me think of you and your current job. Also reminded me of the film Terror Train. Something like that happens in the film Terror Train, and then you know what? Serial killer.
I don't think I've ever seen Terror Train.
It's all right. Jamie Lee Curtis, early Scream Queen role for her.
Okay.
Uh, a rare film with David Copperfield. All takes place on a the magician. He plays the magician in the movie. Big surprise.
Ooh.
Whole the whole thing takes place on a train. Uh, during a New Year's party, but everybody's dressed up like it's Halloween. Same cinematographer, I think, from The Shining. Anyway, Terror Train. It's free pretty much all over the internet if you like old Jamie Lee Curtis horror movies.
Good to know.
Yeah, check it out. It's a good flick. But it definitely the Dead Man's Hand or the story, likely the story that inspired Dead Man's Hand. I would say inspired Terror Train.
All right, and then we get to the last laugh, and it's just a lot more stories that are spooky and a little bit funny.
Yeah, these ones it's good. I'm glad that they always end on the last laugh. Or they always end on the funny stories because it gives you a little bit of levity at the end of the a night of reading scary stories.
If you finish this before bed, you're not just like, oh god, like they've kind of broken the atmosphere a little bit.
Yeah, the one that this collection that has stuck with me would be the bad news, which is basically it's a joke. Um, it's the one about two guys who love baseball and they make each
Oh
other promise
yeah.
like first one who dies will come back and let the other one know about what heaven is like. But one dies, the other comes back, and he's like, "Oh, what's heaven like? Do they have baseball?" "Yeah, it's great. We have baseball in heaven. Bad news, you're up tomorrow." A terrible retelling of that story. You should just read it if you haven't read it in a while. But that's the one from that particular collection that has stuck with me for years and years.
Okay.
Always end on a joke. End on a joke. I'm glad that that Alvin Schwartz did that. Fantastic collection of stories in that one.
Sorry, I was trying to look up that Dracula dad joke, and I just don't remember where I found it. So moving on to Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark 3.
Oh yeah.
So the first collection is called When Death Arrives. Now, there is a story in this one called Just Delicious. And there is just one of these stories in every single book. Where you eat a body part or something, or you steal something, and then the dead come and get you. In the first one, it was the toe.
Hmm.
In the second one, it was $2 silver from a dead woman, and in this one, it's a woman's liver.
Hmm.
But at least in this one did have a twist ending though, because I was reading it and I was just like, you're just rehashing the same story. And this one has a fun twist where instead of getting taken out, the woman who did it actually just blames her jerk husband and has him get taken out, which was a fun little flip on the genre.
There is cannibalism, I suppose, is always scary. I guess it makes sense that these that kind of comes up as a theme throughout all these books. I don't know
Yeah.
why. Cannibalism's scary.
Yeah,
It's
there was a
just
cannibalism in the second
unsettling.
one. There was the guy who made the sausages. That one's always
Sausages in
stuck
the
with
second book.
me. Yeah.
Mhm.
That one lived rent free in my head as a kid.
Don't take strange eats sausages. I was trying to make that not sound sexual, and there's no way to not do it. Um, don't steal livers.
So this chapter was my favorite set of stories of this type from all three books so far. I thought like he really found his stride starting off this one.
Hmm. Yeah, the one from this collection that has stuck with me is Hello Kate.
Oh yeah, I
Um,
loved Hello Kate.
yeah, that one's barely a page. There's a page long
That's
about a
all you
man
need.
running it. Yeah, it's all you need. I mean again, that's the amazing thing about this collection is that these stories are so short and remain so effective. They're all just like quick stories about ghost encounters, but they just leave you with a just a sense of foreboding. It's beautiful.
So then the next section is On the Edge. Now, On the Edge where we finally run into the familiar face of Harold, the Scarecrow.
Oh yeah.
Um, on the Edge is all stories that people say couldn't happen, but they did. And so I just want to say about Harold that I am so glad the one who got killed was not the one who wanted to kill Harold from the moment that he moved.
Okay.
So basically, the scarecrow kind of like starts to groan, and the first guy's like, "Well, we just need to throw it in the fire. Like, clearly, we need to burn this thing. It is coming to life." And the other guy's like, "No." And he eventually gets skinned alive by it. And the guy who said you should burn it escapes. And had it gone the other direction, I would have been like, "Oh, come on."
Yeah. This is one of the most icon. This is one of the most iconic stories from this collection. These collections. Again, it's paired with one of the most horrific um illustrations. Scarecrow that just it looks like a it looks like a corpses sewn together. It's a beautifully disturbing image. And it is I think it's the main image they use in the promos for the movie. I feel like he's right there
Hmm.
in front and center because
He
it is
is.
really one of the most horrific stories. Like this is real true horror. This is grown-up horror. I would say made available to kids, but this is a grown-up horror story.
This is definitely one of the two that they really leaned into for the trailer. The other one was in the next section, which is called Running Wild, and that was the story The Dream.
Hmm.
And it is this big woman in like, she's just like, she looks like Oogie Boogie with long hair. Uh, and she's
Accurate description.
heavily featured in the trailer as well, but she's not even like the villain really in her story. And as I was reading these, I was like, how are they going to fit these guys into the movie? I'm like so amped to see the movie now because the people that they featured, I'm not even sure how they're going to work them into like a modern telling of it.
Yeah. I think because the image of this woman is scary. Again, it's another iconic image from the illustrations. It makes sense that they would lean into it for the movie because it's one of the things. Because that movie is a big. I'm assuming because I haven't watched it yet. It's a nostalgia project, and people are most nostalgic for the imagery for these books, and she's such an iconic image. But yeah, she's not really scary in the story at all. She's not a villain. She's not a monster. She's just sort of there.
So, really enjoyed these chapters, but I did get a little distracted. I was also like, why for the Scary Stories movie did you pull everyone from the third book? It doesn't give you.
I
I mean,
think
there's always room to grow, but you'd think you would have kind of started from like the earlier works.
I think it's because the um probably because this imagery is some of the most horrifying and is some of the most that has stuck around from the history of these books. I think that's probably why the movie chose to lean into book three as much as it seems from trailer.
So after Running Wild, well, also On the Edge and Running Wild. Well, I explained On the Edge. Running Wild is the next chapter, and he actually doesn't give you a description of Running Wild. It's kind of just a hodgepodge of like scary stories.
Running Wild, page 47. Hold on, I'm flipping back.
Usually there's like a short description, like these are about ghosts or something, but he's like, these things are what happens here.
The main one out of Running Wild is Wolf Girl.
Oh yeah, Wolf Girl is like a tale as old as time across so many different civilizations.
And that's the one about a girl who mother dies and then she's raised by wolves. Yeah, definitely it's a story you've heard before because it's something that I think comes like it's something that gets repeated throughout time. It's something that we always talk about. Or we always think about like what would it be to be raised like an animal? Are you ever a person? Reminded me, I saw a movie recently. What was it called? Um, The Company of Wolves, which is a very strange, almost kids werewolf horror movie. This story gave me a lot of vibes from that movie, the same vibes I got from that movie.
Cool.
Have we talked about that on the show? Have I talked about the Company of Wolves?
I don't believe so.
Oh, it was 1980s. Angela Lansbury, like the main most well-known star. It's it's really hard to describe. It feels almost like somewhere in between Labyrinth and Legend, that it's a werewolf fantasy movie that is aimed seemingly, I would say, at like early teen female audience. But some of the werewolf transformation sequences are so horrific. So incredibly horrific that I don't think it was ever going to really connect with that audience because it was just too much. Hard to
Okay.
describe. Yeah. Anyway, a topic for another episode perhaps. But I think I'll kind of a lost movie, a movie that people don't think of anymore because I don't think it was going to be able to. It just wasn't accessible to the audience it was aiming for. That's neither here nor there.
I mean, we'll put a pin in that for the future. I feel like this entire topic could be an episode. There's so much out there on it.
Werewolves? Have we done a werewolf episode? I don't think we
I'm
have.
not even talking werewolves. I'm talking about like Mowgli type of stuff. Like, like
Oh,
werewolves we could definitely do, but also just like raised by wolves. You know what I mean? Like that concept.
oh sure.
So, the next chapter is called Five Nightmares, and that literally, it's mainly about honestly people who go on trips, horror stories about things that happen to people while they're traveling. And that's where we run into the weird Oogie Boogie woman, who apparently has a name, but is never named in the story. So I don't know how she has a name. But, I mean, that's, neither here nor there. This is also the chapter where one of the stories ends abruptly. Maybe you will remember. And it's like, for the real story, you need to go to the bibliography. Go to this
Oh yeah, what we were
page.
talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And then what I would say is maybe the biggest image, maybe the biggest takeaway, maybe the biggest thing that people remember from these books, I would say comes from this chapter. Red Spot.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a true thing. Like, that's a true story.
So that's the story about the woman who wakes up and finds a red spot on her face, and then it erupts into just a endless spiders. Oh, that is scary. That is a terrifying image. That is that's the point of like, is this okay for kids? This might be a little bit too much.
Yeah, that's body horror. And is body horror ever okay for kids?
Yeah, that's full on Cronenberg body horror
Yeah.
we're talking here. Yeah, this is another one that it's just like burned into my mind. I'll always remember this drawing here on page 63 of this woman with this horrified expression, with this hole in her face, and from this hole is emerging endless spiders.
Endless
Why would
spiders.
why would you do this to us, Alvin Schwartz?
I mean,
This is
some could blame Stephen Gamble,
the
the
art and
artist.
illustrator. Yeah, that's true. It's true. This is I mean like this is full on. This is again, this is along with Harold, this is full on adult horror. Made available to children.
Yeah, this is the type of story where I see people trying to get the book banned. Like, because
These
typically,
are some of the most frequently banned books.
yeah, and that's the thing. These people are always on these, and I'm like, why? And reading the third one specifically, I'm like, oh, the third one definitely has like some adult horror, some body horror. I don't want to ban it, but like kids' entire life is body horror.
No, don't ban books. But if you're a librarian and a kid is checking out Scary Stories 3, warn the kid. It's just like some of the stuff in this is real scary.
Yeah,
Like early reader books, and like, is this okay for an early reader? But like, I say this as somebody who engaged with these books at the age range that they're written for, and I suppose I
we're
grew up to
fine.
be. Are we? I was
We
gonna
grew up and
say
did
grew up.
this podcast. I work in a corpse lab.
Uh, I'm a database system administrator, so I guess you know, uh, uh, on the whole, we came out fine. The average is out. Oh boy.
So the
Yeah,
next, ch- go
that
ahead.
is scary. No, it stuck with me. That is scary stuff.
Yeah, that that one is one that, even as an adult, I was like, and turning the page, like it's the only thing that actually like really bothered me in all this. It's like ugh, no
Mm,
thank you. Because like when I lived in Costa Rica, there are flies called bot flies,
heard of those.
and that's what they do when they bite you. They lay their eggs under your skin, and it's bad
Gross.
news.
Wicked gross.
So the next chapter is called "What is Going On Here?" and it's just one story of a house outside of New York City in 1958 that had like a haunting basically, and it's just kind of like a Lorraine Warren type of story, but without the Warrens.
It reminded me of Poltergeist.
Yeah, I was wondering if they were going to end up saying it turned out to be like the premise for Poltergeist.
Yeah.
And maybe it did.
This also this also shows you just like the variety of writing styles that Schwartz uses here because this it's
Almost on like a
almost feels like
journal.
yeah, like a journal. It feels like a journal. It's just like Thursday, February 6th, bottles open. Sunday, February 9th. It goes into more detail than that. But it's a date by date breakdown of the strange happenings of this house.
It was like very clinical,
Yeah.
as if it was by someone who was like documenting it for research.
Felt like it was aimed at kids who were maybe a little older than some of the other stories because it was much more structured. It
I feel
wasn't like a loose story. It felt like it was more structured.
I feel like this whole book was aimed for kids a little older. It's almost like he was like, well, the people who liked 1 and 2 are going to be the ones who read 3 and it's been 10 years. So I'm going to age it up a little bit.
Yeah, that could be. That would make sense.
So then we get to the next chapter. It's called Woo. And this one is also funny, not scary. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of more of the same.
Yeah.
Um, they were less funny this time. They were more like tongue in cheek. Like
Yeah, I feel
I
like
feel like it was a different type of comedy this time around.
I feel like nothing from this chapter has really stuck with me. Even having just read this, like, I finished reading this 5 or 6 hours ago today. I don't remember anything from it particularly well. I would say this is probably the weakest It feels weird to judge it in such a way. Um, Weakest chapter out of all three books.
It does
Nothing from this one has stuck with me.
it does do a really good job of diffusing the book though.
That's
Like,
true.
like it was tonally different from the others, and I think it was because it was coming after a tonally different book.
Still fantastic artwork.
Oh yeah, no, great. Do recommend all three of these. I'm excited
Absolutely.
to watch the movie and see what they pull.
Yep.
I heard the movie was okay, but this is less for me about like a solid horror movie and more about a tribute movie at this point, and I just want to like look and see all the little Easter eggs and stuff.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch the movie now that I've reread the books. And again, these books are so quick, 45-minute reads from cover to cover. You can read all three books, in an easy afternoon. I'm going camping for the first time in my entire life.
We've
Never camped
talked
before.
about
I'm
that,
going
right?
camping.
And I'm horrified every time.
I'm going for the first time ever in my life in a couple of weeks, and I think I'm going to bring these with me.
Do you need
Even if
anything?
I need anything for camping, I don't think so. It's not like full on camping. I'm not going to be in the woods. I'm going to be at a manicured campground with a cabin that's close to the bathrooms.
Okay. Because I was like, I work relatively close to you now.
It's true. No, I think we'll be fine. I I don't even think this get roughly. I don't think we could even call it roughing it. What I'm gonna do? It'll be me, uh, and another couple, and their two kids, and we're gonna be. I think we're gonna be fine.
Cool. Well, good luck with that. Let me know how you like it,
Thanks.
and maybe how. I mean, your kids are a little young for you to read the scary stories from here to them.
So yeah, I don't even think they would read. They wouldn't sit long enough to listen to me read this. I don't think she
Well,
would
maybe
care.
if you like it, you can do it again in a few years, and then you
Oh
can do
yeah.
it.
When my daughter is like 6, I think I could sit and read these with her, and she'll get a good kick out of them. 4, she's still too young.
Yes,
I would say 6 years old. I bet you at 6 years old she'll enjoy these.
I bet she'll be okay. Yeah, at least some of them you can gauge.
Yeah. Definitely by 10. I wish I could remember how old I was when I read these. I feel
These
like
were
it was
really big in 1993, so we were like 8.
8. Makes sense.
Third
They've
grade to
been out.
fifth grade, I think, is when like these were really big. So like 93 to 95. So like 8 to 10 for us is when they exploded.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. But he also put out a book for even younger kids called In a Dark, Dark Room,
Yeah,
which
you
I have
discussed
sitting on a
that
shelf.
in the last
If the-
episode.
So maybe I'll start with that because I have that sitting on a shelf behind me right now.
It's a great idea.
Childhood copy of that one. Yeah, so there we go. I'll get it. Even younger Alvin Schwartz. I'll let you know how that goes.
Cool. I look forward to it. If it goes well, maybe I can work it with my son, but he's a pretty soft guy. I think we're gonna really have to lull him into spooky.
Oh, he's like 2.5.
Yeah,
How
but
old is he now?
even then he's just the softest boy. He is very big into pastels and soft fabrics and, not scary things.
He's a kid of comfort.
He is a
Let's
kid of
call him that.
comfort, yes.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
we
give him
love him
time.
for it. But we're
He's a
definitely going to
cutie.
have to give him a lot of time.
Oh man.
Yeah. All right. So, we don't I haven't been up to anything with my adult time that's even really remotely spooky. Um, yeah, I'm just excited to watch this movie.
Me too. Check it out. We'll talk about it next week or in
Yeah,
2 weeks.
2 weeks. I think we were pretty on topic. I don't know if there'll be a Dad's Digress for this one, but I mean,
Holy cannoli.
you'll find out.
Find
Uh,
out a week from now if there was anything worth cutting.
where can they find out about that, Sam?
Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, at RTSpiritspod and us on those social medias. Let us know if there's anything you think we should be discussing. What are fun, spooky things you do with your kids? What are fun, spooky stories, TV shows you watch? What's haps? What's up, brother? Tell us. We want to know.
All of it. We want to know all of it.
Yeah,
Well, thank
keep.
you so much for joining us. Coming up, I believe, before the next episode is World Dracula Day, so don't forget to come up with fun plans for that.
Hmm.
And
And we'll
yet,
tell you about another holiday next time we talk.
and then you'll have just finished that, and then you'll be learning about a whole new one. So we will see you
Ooh.
then. I'm Steve,
I'm Sam.
and thank you for joining us. We always enjoy your company.
Night.
Night.